Thank you for that rousing welcome. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Makno Muhammad Yusof, Chairman of Yayasan Khazanah. Sorry, let's just move this a bit. Yang Berusaha Puan Siti Kamaria, Managing Director of Yayasan Khazanah, Board of Trustees, distinguished speakers, esteemed guests and members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all. Now, it's truly a privilege to be here at the Khazanah Forum 2025. Now, this forum, much like the joint forum, Khazanah Forum and AVPN 2 years ago, is more than a gathering of minds. It's a meeting of purpose, a place where ideas are not just exchanged, but shaped into commitments, and commitments into action. Now, I want to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to Yayasan Khazanah for bringing us together, for the speakers for your insights, and to each participant here for taking the time to be part of this important conversation. And looking around the room, which I can see a bit, I'm struck by something that we don't always see enough, and that is genuine intent. The shared desire to create real and lasting change is the energy that fuels progress. Today, I want to reflect on 3 simple but powerful words: aspire, intent, and moves. Now, the acronym is AIM, or AIM for short. Now, these are not abstract words or concepts. They're related words that can help frame the mind to be the philanthropy that listens. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share with you a story. Now, a while ago, I posed 2 questions to my management team. Now, the first is a simple question: what's your aspiration in life? And I asked them to write it down. Actually, why don't you guys do that? Okay? Well, take a piece of paper or your phone, etc. You know, fine. What's your aspiration in life, right? Write it down. And then I followed that with a second question, right? Now, the second question is, now imagine now you've had the privilege of living until the age of 108 years old. Actually, I used an example of 98 before, but I think nowadays you get more people living to 100, yeah. And you're at your end of your life journey. Now look back in your life. Look back on your life. What is it that you've missed? What is it that you would regret the most if left undone? And you're sitting there reflecting, you have your family with you. What is it that you reflect the most? And I asked the team to write that down. Now, it's actually quite interesting because I found that, you know, for some people, they actually had different answers to the 2 questions. And the common difference was the answer to the first question tended to be about self-accomplishment. But when it came to the second question, the answers were about family, about community, about leaving a legacy. And people spoke about wanting the best for their children, about regretting not spending enough time with their parents, about seizing the opportunity given their position to do more good. And not a single person mentioned money, titles, or possessions. Now, despite using a lifespan of a centenarian as an example, that's quite long, it actually dawned on people how brief life can be on this earth, and how little time there is to leave that legacy or accomplish something for the children, for the family, or for the community. So I asked my team, now given their personal aspiration, and with Khazanah as a platform, what can they do that helps them achieve their aspiration? And we brought these ideas together in the organizational context. A shared dream emerged. And that is to see Malaysia succeed, not just in terms of economic growth, but in the well-being of our children, our families, the strength of our communities, the sustainability of our environment, and it was about advancing Malaysia. And that is the mission of Khazanah today. Now I tell this story because at the heart of it, it's about having that authentic purpose. If we are authentic and clear about a life aspiration, about our purpose, and we keep on reminding ourselves of that purpose, then many things will fall in place. People know when you're here to serve rather than when you're here to show. An authentic purpose is not manufactured. It's actually genuine. It's lived. It's felt in the way we engage, in the partnerships that we form, and the impact that we deliver. And if we ever lose sight of what truly matters, the families that we support, the communities that we serve, and future generations that we are accountable to, we risk losing our way. So the first word I introduce, aspire, means purpose with authenticity. So the second word, intent. If purpose gives meaning and reason, the big why, intent channels purpose and aspiration into clear how and when. And at the heart of this, of intent, is one of the most overused and underestimated words in leadership, which is listening. We all say we listen, but do we really? Now, let me share an insight from Jamil Qureshi, a globally recognized psychology and performance coach, which I had the pleasure of meeting recently. He reminds us that success often requires us to act differently, think differently. Now, that's not easy. We live in a world shaped by our own beliefs and filters. Filters that can distort and that can even delete what we hear. To act and think differently, we need to check our assumptions, open our minds, and embrace new perspectives, especially those that challenge us. That's where genuine listening comes in. So how do we do this? Now, each one of us have different backgrounds. We are brought up by different families, and some had different cultures, and nearly all of us would have experienced life differently over time. And the tendency is to use your own experiences and belief systems to whatever that's being communicated to help understand. But that in itself is a problem. Listening without distortion, deletions, and filtering means putting aside our own assumptions and belief systems and stepping into others' shoes and seeing the world through their eyes. And being in tune is different from just hearing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I had a couple of examples that I wanted to use, but when I came to this hall, it was at the tail end of catalyzing change in our communities, and I had a chance to hear Saudara Shak Koyok, as also Stephen Chan. But it's interesting because when you hear the stories, that is listening. Just as I first started with the two questions, it's actually the same question. One from the perspective of looking forward, and the other from the perspective of looking back. And as we hear Saudara Syakoyo about land rights, about the importance of land for cultural rights, for cultural rights, about a community where suddenly from outside people imposing a different set of standards altogether and not listening. Stephen, that was very, very insightful because he showed us a perspective from a different lens altogether. The dialogue in the dark forces us to listen. So when we approach a conversation with genuine intent, we tune in not only to what is being said, but to the hopes and concerns that underpin these words. Purposeful listening builds trust. And trust is a bridge that makes collaboration and change possible. So the second word I introduced, intent. Intent requires purposeful listening without filters. Now the last word is moves. Now purpose and intent come alive only when they lead to action, and real action. The kind that solves complex and multifaceted challenges. And we know that this can never be done in isolation. So what stops us from moving? Knowing we cannot do it alone is one thing, but getting everyone to rally around a problem is another. Now each player brings something different to the table. Funding, capacity building, policy decisions, on-the-ground know-how. But aligning these strengths towards a shared solution is the real challenge. And that's why convening matters so much. Convening is not simply about inviting people into the same room. It is about creating the conditions where trust can grow, where understanding can take root, and where collective action becomes possible. Now I'm reminded of a line from a recent film, Conclave, where the character Lawrence says, Certainty is a great enemy of unity. Certainty is a deadly enemy of tolerance. Now that struck me because it speaks directly to the challenge and the opportunity of convening. When we bring people together, especially those who think differently, we must be willing to set aside the need to be absolutely right. It's in that space of openness that unity can form. Not by erasing differences, but making space for dialogue, learning, and respect. Without that openness, collaboration simply doesn't happen. Now we've seen this in action at Khazanah. I think we have our Dana Impact, where our partnerships with Antler in building Malaysia's venture capital ecosystem and connecting local founders with international founders, bringing in different skills, perspectives, and experiences to create something bigger than a single player could achieve alone. We also have our mid-tier companies. Again, we're working very closely with Securities Commission, getting 100 companies with the tools and knowledge and access to capital so that they can scale globally. Again, it's an all multi-effort. And of course, Yayasan Khazanah. Yayasan Khazanah is about convening. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share with you, so last night we had the gala dinner, and I had the privilege of speaking to Tan Sri Azman. You know, the birth of Khazanah, as you know, was because of Tan Sri Azman. And I asked him, you know, with the event that was happening, so how did he feel, right? And he mentioned something, which is, well, you know, it's like a child. Like a child, you see it growing up with, so you have hopes and aspirations. And as it grows, there's trials and tribulations and successes. You're quite proud of them. But he said it's one thing which is very difficult, which is letting go, right? As you let go. Now, but then he said, but you know, you need to do that because you need to give them the space to grow. And he also related the story. Now, Khazanah at the time has been doing so many things where impacting communities. But it was only about 2015 where he and his close friend of his, Arwah Ismail Faris, some of you know him. And they had the discussion, and this was in Makkah, actually. And he explained how it was actually Arwah Ismail Faris who actually came up with the name Khazanah. But when I heard that, I heard, I heard how, I guess how sincere, I heard how authentic that they wanted to do good, right? And that is the foundation of Khazanah. Now, for Khazanah, of course, and as a parent, if you actually educate your child with values and with purpose, then it doesn't matter. As it grows, it will continue to live that purpose. So, for those of us here, today in Khazanah, as you can see, the ones wearing green shirts and short sleeves, very nice. So, it's basically to live that purpose, to embrace that purpose, and to use the space given to us so we can actually grow further. So Yasin Khazanah, a convener, a collaborator, and a catalyst for advancing Malaysia one person at a time across all layers of society. And has been doing that for 10 years, and will do that in the future. And it's an amazing achievement, so congratulations, Khazanah. So I use the word move. And because we move together, momentum builds. Trust grows. And what starts as one move becomes a movement. So as we reflect on our work and our partnerships, let us remember, aspire, anchor yourself in a purpose that is authentic and rooted on value that truly matters. Intent, purposeful listening without filters. Understand what matters from the other person's lens, and plan to address them from their perspective, and move together. Convene, collaborate, catalyze, because lasting impact is never a solo act. Philanthropy that listens is philanthropy that works. And when we aim, aspire, intent, and move, we aim for authenticity. So let us not limit this to today or to this room. Let it be the way we work every day so we advance not only Malaysia's prosperity, but also its heart. So thank you, and may the rest of the day be filled with conversations that inspire, connect, and move forward. Thank you.